WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into the summertime. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour on Thursday morning at Fadley's. Going to be at Lexington Market downtown. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. We're giving away these scratch-offs, the 50th anniversary. Had some winners over at Spirits West last week. We were over at Wilkins Avenue. I wore the floppy hat from our friends at Window Nation, 86690 Nation, putting us on the road all summer long. Our 25th anniversary is August the 3rd. We'll be at Costas most of the day on the 3rd, and then at Drug City on the 4th. My goal is to drag as many of my friends, relatives, loved ones, sponsors, and former fans to Dundalk to bring old Get Nasty gear and stuff like that to celebrate 25 years. And Leonard Raskin's also giving me his crab mallet with the beer opener. I will be using this at Drug City as well. Dennis Koulatsos is here, Coons Baltimore Ford. He is here every Thursday from 3 until 5, and again on Sunday mornings. Sometimes you hear he and I jibber-jabbing, as well as Luke on the weekends, catching things up. Luke's going to be vacationing here soon. We got the Heritage Fair this weekend. We got Ellie Dela Cruz, the sensation. And I'm not wearing – this is not Cincinnati Reds gear, Den. This Coons.
I know.
It's summertime, and I got the air conditioner on, so I'm wearing long sleeves here. You got to get me an orange one. I keep getting on you.
You know what? I'm on my – our site sold out of them, so I'm waiting for them to restock the
orange. Is that popular? Is it because of the Bengals, or what happened? No?
It's since the Orioles
okay.
our thing now. So everybody wants an orange shirt.
Make sure with the Browns and the Bengals.
We've transitioned to all blue shirts. I got to get you a blue one.
All right. Any color you have is fine, but orange is working very well right now. There is a rumor that you will be attending an Oriole game this week with Bruce Posner, who also does Monday mornings and Monday afternoons here and Terp Talk. You're going to go see the Reds and the Orioles this week, and bring me up to speed, because you were an original OG for. I don't go to Oriole games. I mean, they don't. Yeah, I fish. I golf. I don't.
Back when Eddie Murray was playing for the Orioles and whatnot, and Earl Weaver was the manager, I'd go a lot. But, through the years, things have happened, and, never mind my passion for football, but now I'm coming back. It's exciting. And Nestor, I've been to 4 games this year. They're 1-3 in the games that I've attended.
Don't go. Posner, invite me. Don't take me instead of Dennis.
The law of averages says that my next game that I attend, they will win. The law of averages, Nest. So we got some catching up to do. And now we have Cedric Mullins back in the lineup. We have Jordan Westberg called up from the minors. So I'm all in. This is they're doing well. The boys are playing some good ball. They really are.
Well, I know you talked to Luke about it on Thursday, about this pipeline and the minor leagues and what it means and the enthusiasm around it. I just want to talk about the Reds for 2 minutes, because I did this with Leonard a little bit. I talked to Luke a little bit about it too. But Cincinnati's one of those places like Baltimore where, like, baseball's been dormant because it's been mismanaged, and because the sport is the way it is, where the Cubs can have all this money and the Cardinals can have all this money, and the Reds are always kind of sort of chasing them, and they'll never have the money to even afford their own best players. Like the Pirates, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But this is a broken baseball model, but yet there are these historic franchises like the Reds and the Orioles that sit here and wait for the next Adley Rutschman or the next Gunnar Henderson or the next Ellie Dela Cruz. And the people in Cincinnati are back full on them. Like, they've been waiting so long for something. They're in first place. I mean, this is when it gets fun in sports, when it's fun right now. We're good again. It's been a long time since we're good. You want to go drink it in and be a part of it. And the Orioles have made this season memorable, and it's June. It's only June.
Yeah, it is. Let me ask you a question, Esther. Why wouldn't the Major League Baseball, the owners, and I don't know if it's too late or if they can rework this thing, why can't they have a salary cap like they have in the NFL to make things more equitable?
The Players Association have always fought the cap, right? Yeah. And even though it would have a floor, Dennis, I lost lives talking about this in the 90s, right? When we were on top, when I started the radio show, it was 91, I started the radio show, 98 when I bought NST. But in that period of time, 92, 93, 94, 95, we had no football. We had the strike. We were the rich guys. It was us and the Blue Jays buying all the players because Cleveland didn't have a stadium yet. They were about to come online.
That's true.
Yankees were the Yankees, but they didn't have the Yes Network. The Red Sox couldn't get out of their own way. They were a joke. right? I'm talking about 93, 94, 95, when we had 3.5 million people. There were no nationals. I mean, the Phillies were a bit of a joke because people weren't going to the vet because they had a broken down stadium, even though they had a good baseball team in 93. Uh, the game at that point, when I started my career on the radio, that was the point where the lords of the realm of baseball had a chance to catch up. Look, NBA got online, right? They fixed their thing. They have the happiest players. They make a ton of money. The owners make a ton. Everybody's making money in the NBA. The NFL, everybody's making money. It's fun. There's no guaranteed contracts because the union hasn't had the kind of power that it had in baseball. The union in baseball had so much power that it's sort of wrecked the game at various points because the owners have fought back against it. And there really are franchises that stink. Look at Oakland. Look at Tampa. They no matter what they do, they win. They can't get people to come to the ballpark. They can't get a ballpark built.
Yeah,
They can't get civic money. And I spent the last 2 weeks, long stretches, talking about John Angelos's money. And Dennis, the big story here is John Angelos is holding up our rookie governor who's wearing all this Orioles gear and trying to get me to vote for him and send him money. And I like Wes. But at some point, somebody's got to play grown up with the Angelos family and say, we're going to give you $600 million. How are you going to make our city better? How are you going to make our state better? And part of that is the cardinal sin of baseball, which is, well, we know we really can't be good because, like, we only have so much money. And then we're going to run out of money. We're going to run out of players. We're going to be like Kansas City. We're going to have our 3 or 4 years and our Moustakis and our Hosmer and our moment. But then there's going to come a time to pay the bill for Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson or Grayson Rodriguez. And we're just not going to have a $250 million payroll because did you see the crowds? You had 18,000 people there on Sunday. So they're going to play that. We're Oakland, we're Tampa. We can't afford all these guys. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's a baseball issue that the players had so much power. The owners had lousy franchises and we're lousy people. The baseball owners have done an awful job of stewarding their game over the last 30 years, which is why you and I sit here and talk football 11 and a half months a year, right? So baseball had it all, like horse racing, and they don't. These F1 people have all this money and it's a new thing. What's the sustainability? NASCAR kind of came and faded at a period of time, but baseball's the grand game. And when it comes back in Cincinnati and Baltimore, people like you and Bruce Posner will go get it. But then one of the reasons you go get it is it's like the tide's going to go out again and the Yankees are going to have more money again. And 5 years from now, we're going to stink again. And that's shame on baseball. I would agree with you. Shame on baseball for playing it that way.
Yeah, let me ask this. I guess the only way for the Orioles to stay competitive under the circumstances is to keep this farm system going, right? But in order to keep it going, you got to be terrible, so you keep drafting high. And they're not going to be terrible, right? They're winning.
It's a football
right now.
problem. I mean, one of the things with the Ravens. Tell me the lottery pick the Ravens have had. Ravens don't pick in the top 5, top 8, top 10 ever because they never stay.
Ever. That's true. But so I guess we just enjoy them for what they are. We just enjoy and drink in the moment, and hopefully they can make a run this year, right, in the playoffs. Why not?
Well, in strategizing the big picture, going to Westmore and getting $600 million, and him saying to John, what's your big idea for building a casino, a restaurant, mixed usage, something that connects the Top Golf to the casino to the state, like all of that. We're at that tender point with a Baltimore Positive thing here where it'd be very hard to sell an Oriole a check to the Angelos family when they're losing 110 games. But this picked a good time for John to be asking for money and to be asking for something. And that's all well and good for John or his brother or his mother, whoever the next owner is, whatever it is. I'm going to live in Baltimore. This is my town. And what is going to become of it? How can it be the best it can be? And I think that's what you're asking. How can it be the best it can be all the time? And I saw 18,000 people at the game on Sunday and thought, it's like you selling cars. We could still sell more. We could do better than that. We could step it up. Yeah, we could do better than that on a Sunday. And I'm hoping that there is a point where that happens. But part of that is people going down and having a good experience, and you going down with Bruce this week and enjoying it, seeing this young phenom for the Reds. But the sport itself, to your point, there's an original sin in the garden of Bud Selig of we're going to have prince teams and pauper teams, and that's the way we're going to play it, as opposed to all the other American and North American sports that have said, no, 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 we're going to have a fair fight. Unlike college sports, which is not a fair fight at all, right? We're going to have a fair fight in the NBA, so the Denver Nuggets might win one day. We're going to have a fair fight in the NHL, where even though the Rangers and the Red Wings and the Canadians are the Maple Leafs are these venerable franchises, we can have the Vegas Knights and the Florida Panthers in a Stanley Cup final and put on a fair fight, because everybody has baseball's never a fair fight. And
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons that it's really failed and sputtered over 30 years, is that it's not a fair fight, and it'll never be a fair fight, to your point, because it's broken. The model's broken.
Right.
It's a broken model that we get fished into and we go and see. But if all of these guys hatch, if every Heston Kjerstad, if every Colton Cowles, or if all these guys come at once, it'll be fun next year and the next year. And then after that, John Angelos will say, well, we only have 18,000 people on Sunday, or no more $10 tickets. We have to charge you what we charge you, what the Cure charged me the other night, right? Like, yeah, you have to charge me. And then, is Baltimore that town? Is Baltimore the town that's going to come out 35,000? Where are the businesses that are going to buy all these skyboxes and all this? And I know you had cowboy boots on the other night at Darius Rucker. John Angelos has some cowboy boots down in Nashville too.
Well,
And
I'm
they have
sure he
some
does.
disposable income down there, and probably a few private businesses that would like to add to their portfolio of Predators and Titans and volunteers sponsorship. So the sponsors and people coming and you sitting in a suite, Dennis, this is important now, because they're winning. And the number one thing that happens if we don't come is, well, why am I signing a long-term lease here if you're not coming out and supporting a winner? We're giving you a
Right.
winner. So
Well, that's a good point.
Angelo's family's picked a good time to win, and now the city has to step up.
No, it's a fair point. Look, they're putting a good product on the field. The team's very competitive. They're never out of it. They're scrappers. I think they embody what Baltimore's all about. So how can you not support this team? And really, if you have some time on your schedule, and you can get a cheap ticket, I'm sure, in the stadium somewhere to sit and support this franchise at this point in time, because, like you said, it's fleeting. They just don't have the deep pockets to compete with these mega market teams.
Well, my wife's been waving a $20 bill around trying to get some $10 tickets. Maybe the Reds, and you've given me the red and white. Dennis Koulatsos is here from Cooch Baltimore Ford. He is a sponsor of all things here, but also as part of the Dennis Koulatsos Show and the Sunday Sports Voice on Thursday afternoons from 3 until 5, and then on Sunday morning. Hey, you got that WNST text the other day about Jordan Westberg coming up, so you're going to get to see some baby birds as you go out there as well here this week. Ravens taking a little nap in your mind right now? Is there anything football oriented that even comes to your desk, or are you just out doing Derek Rucker at the anthem?
No, you know what? I saw Andrew Brand had a nice article about running backs and their contracts, and he referenced J.K. Dobbins amongst others in that article, and he made some very good, valid points. You and I've talked about already ad nauseum, but aside from that, it's nice to take a break from the Ravens. It really is. We've been raving out for the last 2 seasons, particularly with the Lamar contract cloud hanging over everyone's head and being the headliner for the entire nation, not just here in Baltimore. But it's nice to take a mental break from the Ravens and really focus on and support the Birds. To your point, it's important, as you said, for people to go downtown, go to the stadium, and have a really good time. And they're a fun bunch. What I like about them, talking about the Orioles, Nestor, they're never out of it, truly, and they haven't had a season-long slump. They battled back, and that's what I love about them.
Well, Friday night it was 13-1, but then they come back. They won a couple of
That
games.
aside, yeah. But like Brandon Hyde said, it's not, look, it's not football. It doesn't linger for a whole week. You have to have short-term memory, and you get away from it very, very fast, and you have a chance the very next day to make things right. And that's exactly what they did. And I give them a lot of credit for bouncing back. I love the young talent that are coming up from the minors. You talked about Colton Cowles. At some point this season, we'll see him, right? And then you have Jackson Holliday at some point, maybe next season, coming up to the majors. So I love this pipeline of young talent coming up to the majors.
Well, and one of the things we talked about with Mateo and Frazier and what they were doing here, Mateo had hit the ball in 2 months. So, much like in any good business, you're getting better. And if Mateo wants the at-bats, or Frazier, if they want to be a part of the pile diving in October, they have to hit the ball. And they all know They've all spent time in, March with these young players. They all know this pipeline's coming here, and the veteran players know it too. It's sing for your supper here at this point. It's a real competition for at-bats, and Brandon Hyde's got his hands full. Dennis Koulatsos is here. I want to talk about the running back thing because it's funny you bring that up. I had Chad Wiesling from he's an NFL agent. He lives in Canton. He is the representative for Josh Jacobs. And it's funny enough, he did a couple hours with me and Chris over at Spirits West. He did not get a winning lottery ticket. Chad didn't, but he had a winning shirt. He had a Child's Play ball. Essex, your people.
Nice.
Essex
nice.
Rock
My
and Roll
people.
Dundalk. My
Representing.
people. Essex
Representing.
and Dundalk. Hey, you know where Essex and Dundalk get together is Child's Play, honestly. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so he was wearing his Child's Play gear. And you know what he said to me? He's like, I represent the #1 running back player of the year. I can't get him signed. And J.K. Dobbins popping off. We talked at length about this, about how hard it is for these running backs and their agents. I mean, Wiesling's like, maybe I shouldn't represent running backs if this is the way it's going to go. But, and I ran into a friend of Chad's at the Cure concert the other night. And he's, he said, hey, Chad, say anything about like the Raiders and Josh Jacobs? And I'm thinking, I had Chad for 2 hours on the air and then off the air. We walked to the car together. I didn't ever say to him, hey, dude, is this really going to get done or not? Because I don't think I need to say that because the Raiders have no reason to want to run and give him money. There's no thought that he's not going to play. And Chad's already said, like, he ain't holding out. He's a running back, like they'll just play without him. It'd be like, so he's $10 million this year, so Chad's like, don't feel bad for him. But J.K. Dobbins is never going to get $10 million, even if he runs the ball well. And then the pressure on Chad is that, much like Lamar's mother, he represents all running backs moving forward, that whatever Josh Jacobs agrees to or settles for, everybody else behind him, and that's everybody in the league right now because he's the best running back in the league, has to get in line behind him. You have railed about running backs getting screwed. You should have come and had a crab cake over Spirits West with the agent who's getting screwed because the running back's getting screwed.
Yeah. No, that's 100% correct. And you heard, what have we heard the Ravens say about J.K. Dobbins? Nothing. Crickets. They're ignoring it because, like, as you said, they don't have to do anything. Dobbins has to show up, just like Jacobs has to show up, and all these other guys. And I don't know how they get around it, but it's the worst position right now in the NFL for professional running back. And if you got a kid in high school who's a all-star and maybe has NFL potential, if he's playing linebacker and running back, save his wear and tear. Have him focus. Have him go down a Roquan Smith path versus the J.K. Dobbins path. It pays a whole lot more. It is the worst position, and I don't know how they're going to address it going forward. I don't know what the running backs can do about it, Ness.
You got to listen to this piece with Chad because he has all this. He's the agent, right? He's the Jerry Maguire for.
He's the agent,
and he's been an agent for 27 years, so he speaks the language. He played football. He's got this great Hagerstown, Pittsburgh accent. He lives in Canton. We did an hour on just history of Baltimore rock and roll, on kicks and on Child's Play, right? But his whole thing, he has all the numbers. He's like, my client was in 49.6% of the offense last year. Wide receiver, Devontae, great wide receiver, 13%. So he's making 20 million. My guy can't get 10. My guy can't get signed. My guy's taking on contact. Like my guy been hurt. Like my guy went to Alabama. Like all of that. Yeah, it reminds me of Billick's line to Ed Reed. Ed, you're a safety. I went through this with Chad. I'm like, no. Sorry, Jeremy Shockey, you're tight end. You're not a wide receiver.
Right. There's nothing they can do.
Waller, you are a tight end. You're not a wide receiver.
There's nothing they can do about it now. So that's a sad thing. The agent doesn't have an answer. Neither does a player. Holding out doesn't work. Just ask Le'Veon Bell. Didn't work out well for him.
Well, we discussed that. Chad Wiesling and I talked about Le'Veon Bell.
That didn't work out for him. So all you can do is show up, play, hope you don't get hurt, and then have some team take a shot at you. But again, the number keeps going down. It doesn't keep going up.
Remember when Emmitt Smith held out on the Cowboys? Remember that one?
I do, but they had to sign Emmitt. I mean, it was also a different era. Running backs were being valued a lot more back then than they are now, before teams figured out that they were quote unquote dispensable. And it's just a shame because Josh Jacobs, he's run blocking, he's pass blocking, he's carrying the ball, he's going out for passes. Not only is he in it for 49% of the plays, but he's also, you said, it's collision. It's not even contact. whereas the wide receiver gets to run around, whatever, takes plays off, and he's in there
Ooh,
13%
you
of the
said, hold
time.
on, it's not collision, it's contact.
It's not contact, it's
You're setting
collision.
up to be
It's
an agent.
collision.
If this car thing doesn't work out for you,
Yeah, I
maybe
appreciate that.
maybe you be an NFL agent.
Well, I
maybe.
think about this: if you're a running back and you get drafted in the first round, you're really screwed because the team has a 5th-year option on you. So you don't want to. If you're Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, the two first, those guys are on the hook for 5 years.
You'd have been better off being drafted like Ray Rice a little later.
You're better off getting drafted. You don't want to get drafted in the first round if you're an NFL running back, because you'll save yourself 1 year of wear and tear and money.
Lamar, he negotiated the final year, but Lamar, they were going to screw Lamar and make him play for $32 million, right? I mean, it's the same scenario with,
of course
but
it is.
Lamar wasn't going to play for $32 million, certainly not happily, right?
No. Well, listen, and that also, and I get to be cynical in some of these things. Does a player, does he come to camp, whatever, and all of a sudden, first game he gets a back injury, he gets a neck injury, he gets something, and he games the system, right? So he just rehabs.
Or the team plays a playoff game in Cincinnati, and you just decide not to come, and they wind up giving you $200 million anyway. It's really amazing when I think of the Lamar thing, and I think of the antics and the words and the structure and all of this. The fact that people believe there's a full kumbaya. I don't know. We'll find that out when the rubber meets the road and it's time to play. You have accused Lamar Jackson of not running it 100% last year. You literally did.
I did. It's true. You watch tape on him and felt he was making business decisions, Nestor, from game one. He wasn't running with reckless abandon like he did the first 3 years.
Well, if he runs a reckless abandon, he might be abandoned. You know what I mean?
He might be abandoned,
running with reckless abandon may sound like good for the fans, but it might not be good long term in either way. I mean, listen, Chad Steele threw me out after I asked if running the football 21 times is a good idea for your quarterback. I mean, if I'm not asking that question, I should be thrown out of the friggin' media. And I get thrown out for asking it. But, he's a quarterback that was running into linebackers 21 times in overtime games in week 10 of the season, and quite frankly hasn't been the same since.
But I would think if you're running a franchise, you don't want your players in a position to make business decisions, right? You want to have things settled, ironed out before they hit training camp. And that to me, it's because at best it's a distraction, right?
Well, J.K. Dobbins is already making business decisions. He made one last week by not showing up, right? In the Josh Jacobs case, I don't know where his head is, but when players are unhappy with the team, there's the part, well, good, he's pissed off, he'll come in here and play harder. To your point, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes that fight you had with your girlfriend last night lingers more than you realize it lingers.
Both of these players, whether you're Josh Jacobs or J.K. Dobbins, it's in their best interest to show up in the best shape of their career, have a career year, and put themselves in a position to earn a maximum contract, whatever that may look like. For some, but this guy's after still not signed us. Nobody's signing these guys. Dalvin Cook is still out there, can't get a contract. Now, why is that? And Dalvin Cook still has some tread on his tires. You can certainly, can you see Dalvin Cook on the Ravens? Of course you could. You can see Dalvin Cook on any team in the NFL. The question is, at what price?
Well, and we talked to Chad about that at the Crab Cake Tour last week over at Spirits West, and his point was it only takes one team. In the case of Lamar, or in the case of Josh Jacobs, or in the case of, whomever is going to give that money, right? I mean, it's Odell Beckham Jr. being the greatest example. Nobody thought he was going to get that money. And certainly nobody, man, you talk about getting odds on something. If DaCosta would have winked at me the right way back in the day, and I could, will Odell Beckham Jr. be a Raven, 80-1. I mean, it would have been a way long shot that he would have been a Raven, given the history of the team, the history of salary, and what he was willing to accept. And the Ravens had no problem saying, we'll take that risk.
Oh, I know that. But how many teams would have done that?
One.
It only takes one. To your point, you only need one team to play, right? But these are things
Who was going to give Kirk Cousins that money if the Vikings didn't give it to him 6 years ago?
Probably nobody else.
Who was going to give Deshaun Watson guaranteed? You found that nobody else was going to give him that.
Yeah. No, you're right. You just need one dance partner, don't you? But it's not going to happen with running back, so it just isn't. Because they don't have to. They figured out they can platoon them. And again, if you're really cynical, if you're really running a business and you have your eye on a running back and he's a late first, early second round draft pick, you draft him in in the first round just to keep that extra year, keep him on the hook for an extra year.
Well, it's a weird system. We talked about the baseball system and money and it not being fair. It certainly hasn't been fair to running backs. Great week of radio ahead here. Dennis will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, as well as on Sunday morning for your 4th of July weekend. I'm headed to the Heritage Fair. Big shout out to our friends at Wise Markets for being a part of that. I'm going to have Bob on this week to talk about the Heritage Fair this weekend and the McCartney Tribute Act and the country music on Saturday. Sunday night, Crack the Sky is going to be there with John Palumbo and Rick Witkowski coming to my hometown of Dundalk. So big week around here. Luke will be at the ballpark in the early part of the week. He vacations on the 4th of July. Dennis never vacations. He'll be here all week, and I will be here all week as well. If you catch our Maryland Crab Cake Tour this week, we'll be at Fadley's on Thursday morning, giving away the instant lottery scratch-offs and the throwback to the first ever lottery ticket. We had some lucky winners at Spirits West last week. If you're listening to the air, you'll hear me and Chris Pike and Chad Wiesling, as well as Rick Kehoe, softball legend down in Southwest Baltimore, talking about teaching me the difference between the Baltimore Highlands and Hale Thorpe, where the city line is, and the difference between a Mount St. Joe guy and a Cardinal Gibbons guy, and all. I learned all that from Pica. You'll hear all that all week long. I am Nestor. We are WNST AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.